All right, well, we are back into open session. All right, and the first item on the agenda is the public hearing on the 2020 property tax levy. Is there a motion for the board to open the public hearing on the 2020 property tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mrs. Kleiber?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Or here.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye. Okay, let's see. So is there any discussion for the public hearing? Do we have any comment or anything?
Other than I think this is the appropriate direction to go. This is what we've been doing. Not that past performance is how we should be defining how we move forward, but raising taxes or our budget at the rate of inflation is appropriate. Other costs that we do not control continue to go up, and this is fair to our taxpayers. And actually, it ends up putting the district a little bit behind because our personnel costs, healthcare costs, and a few other things do exceed the rate of inflation in how much they increase, as Jim's graph 10-year projection has shown. But I think this is an appropriate increase.
And I will echo what Joel says, but I will just sort of a little comment though that I do feel that this does get a bit that the way we fund schools though is just I do think is a little absurd on how we fund these schools, and especially how property taxes are assessed in Cook County. But I mean, this is fair, and we're doing the best we can, and I think we should be doing this. But I do feel that just the way we assess property taxes in this county, it just doesn't make sense. There's better ways to do this.
There are. I think you need to talk to states and our representatives, and not just David, all of us, to encourage them to do a better job in figuring out how to fund things. And I have not reached out to my local representative for that, so I'm part of the problem.
All right. Any further comment? All right, if there is no further comment, is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing for the 2020 property tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mrs. Kleiber?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. Has there been any public comment this evening? Kathy, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Last I checked, there's not. Let me see if there's any now.
Okay.
There's not.
All right. We'll continue on. At this time, are there any board member proposed changes to the agenda? Okay, if not, then that will take us to the superintendent's report.
All right, thanks, Dan. So just a couple things I want to share. I know the community and the board's well aware that we are currently on what we call an adaptive pause. We have not had children in school for in-person learning since November 20th. We are scheduled and we do fully anticipate a return on January 4th after the winter break. I know what we are sending out a number of communications about both my second item as well as just another item I do want to make mention of, and that is just really encouraging all of our families and all of our staff to find a way to celebrate the holidays in a COVID safe kind of way so that everyone is safe to return to school. We are really looking forward to it, and we just really appreciate the support of the community during this time. We know this has taken a lot of added flexibility on the part of all of our parents too, to have schedules shift and change. And so I just want to thank the community and encourage the community to be very safe. And we look forward to having our hybrid learners back. I know one parent had reached out and they said, "Do you mean everyone's coming back on January 4th? I said, "No, just the people that had already been in person." There are some that had shifted from remote to hybrid at the trimester, so there may be a few, but we are not requiring all children to come back. Our remote learning academy and our remote learning options continue for families that want that and need that. So again, really thanks to the community for everyone's flexibility and understanding as we continue to navigate the challenges of education during COVID. So the part that, as you know, we've had a discussions along the way over the past couple of months about our saliva screening. We actually launched it with our staff that have been in person over the past 2 weeks. And again, that provided us an opportunity to kind of work through some of the logistics with LaGrange District 102 and just to kind of get some practice. And I did want to share with you, as of today, we have 173 staff members who are signed up to participate in the screening. So that's a great majority of our staff. I think if you count every part-time, everybody, cafeteria, custodians, paraprofessionals, teachers, administrators, we're at about 250, but I still think that 173 is a good number as we start the new year. And then we have 583 students that have given consent. So we've seen that number really steadily increase, really even just this past week. As you know, we've been sending out reminders. Families can participate. They can send in a new consent form at any time, and we will add people in essentially the following week. They need to let us know by the Wednesday before the week in which they want to participate, just so we can get the labeling process and everything move forward. But we have about 1,000 students with in-person learning, so this is just a little better than half, and we'd really like to see that number increase. So anyway, we will continue to encourage families to participate. And I do know from both District 102 and District 105, kind of over time, I think as families watched other families participating, as, perhaps even children shared that it's not scary or hard thing to do, that the participation level increased. So we just are, I think, very fortunate to have this opportunity. I have heard more and more from other superintendents from other school districts just in these past couple of weeks of people really wanting to be able to pick up a testing protocol as they look at the continuation, or for some districts, the start of in-person learning. So again, I think it's a great opportunity, and I thank the board for it, and we will make the best of it. And I think it will add another layer of safety and mitigation to our overall in-person learning plan. The other kind of exciting news piece, and I know Wesley and Dan joined us last night on Zoom. We had, 35 administrators, teachers, community members, parents join us for the launch of our strategic planning process with the Consortium for Educational Change. Last night was our orientation session, and although we probably didn't dig into a whole lot of content and big ideas, we really had some great conversations. Members of the strategic planning team were asked to read some articles about trends in education, the future of education, and we're able to go into some breakout groups for more discussion about those articles. And again, I was just very, very impressed with the parents that were participating, the staff that are participating, the big ideas that were discussed. I'm really looking forward to the process. I know we've all agreed we're going to carefully monitor how this really works on Zoom during this virtual time, but our first evening felt really engaged, and parents and staff were really invested in the process, and I really appreciated the conversations that we had. I will share, we're going to keep a tab on the sort of the front, the landing page of our website too, to share pieces and parts of the process along the way. As we dig into more detail, we'll certainly be updating you with even greater detail. But the articles, if people are interested in reading the articles are posted there on the website. The roster of those participants is posted here on the board agenda and our website. Our schedule and the purpose of each of the sessions is also posted. So we really want people to follow along and to sort of help read through and understand the process along the way. Dan or Wesley, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Yeah, it was an orientation, so not a lot to accomplish other than to orient ourselves on what we're going to be doing. But the breakout rooms, we had 3 breakout rooms on these articles, and it was, at least the one I was in, was very engaging. And the article I read was, or I was assigned to read, was a lot about how technology is becoming more and more of it. And it talked a lot about artificial intelligence, or essentially artificial intelligence, and what does that do to us as humans, our society? How do we educate people with it and about it and things like that? So it's an interesting start to really get you kind of thinking about how to think about the next 5 years. And I was poking around a little bit. I think it was Don, had done a really nice job of getting this added in. So it's just like Martha said, right there on the front page, and I just pulled it up right now. And whole strategic planning, and each of our segments is broken out, and you can easily navigate the different pieces of content that's in there. So if anybody is interested, everything, I believe I think Perry said, like, after each one of our sessions, then the material of whatever it was gets added out there. So yeah, if you guys want to follow along, everything will be posted out there. So I think it's a nice job getting it put up on the website too. I think it's very easy to find and easy to navigate for those that want to follow along.
Yeah, I was in a different breakout session. The article that we read had talked about the importance of social emotional learning in modern education. Excuse me. And definitely, I think Martha said that she was really impressed with the parents and the teachers, how passionate the comments were that were coming out. We only had about a 20-minute discussion, so I'm sure we'll be getting to know each other more over the next few months as this process goes along. And as Wes mentioned, it was only an orientation, but it was good to be a part of things. It was a fast 2-hour session. I had some reservations going in on whether or not this would be viable, or if it would work remotely. At least coming off of the first session, I was very pleasantly surprised, and I thought things moved very well. I think one of the things that was mentioned is a benefit, or an unintended unknown benefit that they're seeing on having these sessions remotely, is that rather than having a one solid day session that would require people who are outside the district to take away from work, and people who are in the district to find substitutes, that having these sessions as a 2-hour block, held closely together. So I think it's like 3 2-hour sessions held the same week, is equivalent to one day in school, or one day in the planning session. That it's allowing more people to participate than had been previously. People who would have trouble, or would be worrying about those concerns of missing work or missing their classroom, and being able to avoid that has been a pleasant surprise. And I was pretty happy with how the session went last night. I'm looking forward to it continuing. And as Wes mentioned, it's up on the website for folks who want to follow along.
Thanks for adding those comments. I just, a couple others. The other two are really, well, one is an announcement. I know January 6th had originally been listed on our 2-year board calendar as a canceled meeting. I think at one point had probably anticipated it fell during winter break. It actually falls just after winter break. And given the conversations we need to have about more about our facilities, and we also have some added policies, we would like to have that committee of the whole meeting. I know the board's aware, but I wanted to share that again, that we do plan to have a January 6th committee of the whole meeting. And then the other, speaking of meetings, we had our facility advisory committee meeting on November 30th, and I know there's more detail to be shared about that. I've posted the agenda for everyone. I know Linda and Joel can also update everybody, but looking at the prioritization and considerations of the projects that are still kind of sitting within our long range plan, And we look forward. I know tonight we're going to talk more about Hollywood. We're also going to talk about a maintenance project related to the central school sprinklers. And then I know Joel has an opportunity to say, Joel and Linda have an opportunity to say more when we get to committee reports. So I don't know that I will belabor much of that here in the superintendent's report, but wanted to remind everybody that that process continues, and we have more information to share here yet tonight. And that is the superintendent's report, Dan.
All right, thanks, Martha. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Can the board secretary read tonight's consent agenda? I think that's Wes, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so tonight's approval or tonight's consent agenda is the includes the meeting minutes of the November 4th, 2020 meeting, the closed session minutes, November 18th, 2020, November 18th, 2020 regular business meeting, the personnel report as presented, the payables pre-list as of December 1st, 2020, and the payables pre-list as of December 16th, 2020.
All right. Is there a motion that the board approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion, or are there any items that need to be set aside for further discussion? All right. If not, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi,
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Marhol,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleiber,
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead,
Aye.
and Mr. Hunt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Riverside Education Council. I see we have some members here with us this evening.
Good evening. As we have done periodically throughout this unique school year, we want to share some data on behalf of the members of the Riverside Education Council with regard to returning to in-person instruction. In a survey sent to our members on December 9th, 156 REC members shared their thoughts about a return to in-person instruction on January 4th. At this time, 21.8% of the respondents, or 34 people, are in favor of returning on the scheduled January 4th return date. 31 people, or 19.9%, responded that they are uncertain about returning on January 4th at this time. According to some of the comments we received on the survey, the reason for their uncertainty is that it's too soon to tell what the virus metrics in the immediate area, the region, and regions where staff members live might be in the coming weeks. Similar to the data that we've shared in the past, 58.3% are not in favor of a return to in-person instruction on January 4th. However, when asked a follow-up question, this number changed.
Follow-up question asked of those who were either uncertain of a January 4th return or who were not in favor was, are you in favor of a return to hybrid instruction after delaying the return an additional 10 to 14 days? The response was overwhelmingly yes. Of the 122 people who were not in favor or were uncertain, 91 said that delaying the return 10 to 14 days would make them feel comfortable returning to hybrid instruction. The dominant reason for this is a concern that families will gather for holidays as late as January 1st, and the anticipated return on the 4th is just too soon. When looking at those staff who are in favor of returning on January 4th, as well as those who supported a delayed return, we have 125 members, or 80% of our respondents, who support a return to in-person instruction next month. The official position of the Riverside Education Council is to delay the return from our adapted pause until 10 to 14 days into the new year. We appeal to the board to consider this option for the health and safety of students and staff.
Hauser teacher Jenny Popovich wanted to share a personal statement, but was unable to join us this evening, so we're reading this on her behalf. I would like to thank our district for taking the additional steps to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in our schools and in the community with the saliva screening. It is a great next step in preventing the spread of this awful virus, but I'm worried. January 4th is right around the corner. In order for the saliva screening to help, there needs to be a high percentage of participants. Currently, the positivity rate in suburban Cook County is greater than 12%. With such a high number of positive cases, the upcoming holiday celebrations, and families traveling, it would be prudent to continue the adaptive pause for a minimum of 2 weeks after January 4th. The extension to the adaptive pause would give the district time to have families begin the saliva screening and assess the impact of the holidays and travel on community spread. The positive cases within the community, as well as the participation percentage and numbers from the saliva screening, would provide data to determine an informed return to school date. As long as there are such high numbers of COVID in the community, we are unable to provide a guarantee that it is being kept out of the schools. I worry about my students, their families, and all of the District 96 staff. At this point, I would guess that most of us know someone that has suffered illness or death because of COVID. If we can help decrease these numbers, why wouldn't we? Thank you for your time, Jenny.
We have one other REC member who wanted to share a personal statement. Patty Dost is an elementary PE teacher. She is unable to join us this evening, so we will share her statement with you. I am a remote teacher, but teach from school. Due to potential holiday gatherings over break and how easily this virus spreads, I am concerned for my colleagues' health as well as my own with contracting this virus. I would feel more comfortable returning to hybrid learning 7 to 14 days after break, i.e. January 11th through 18th. I'm very happy that we have the opportunity to participate in the saliva screening program and believe that will be a strong component in keeping us safe. However, for this to be truly effective, a majority of the student and staff population, ideally 100%, need to be enrolled in the program. With the amount of COVID cases on the rise and hospitals potentially struggling to meet the needs of the community, I am in favor of extending the adaptive pause by 2 weeks after break, and that the majority of the student and staff population will be participating in the COVID saliva screening program. Sincerely, Patty Dost, PE teacher, Central and Hollywood Schools. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Cayesta and Ms. Ullman. Definitely appreciate you coming with us tonight. All right. Next is board member comments. Are there any board member comments this evening? Okay. Guess we've been on pause for a while, so haven't been much in terms of events to attend. All right, so then that will take us to committee reports. First on the list is the Finance Committee.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Then next is the Education Committee.
Yeah, so as everyone just heard, we are in an adaptive pause, and I personally would like to thank all of the staff that have pivoted, in my opinion, very efficiently and well to changing to full remote, even when they were in hybrid before. And it is a lot different. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate their time. And another thing to mention is regarding those saliva waivers, I know that our schools and my own principal sending out information, but if you haven't returned your form, this is the perfect time to do it. And I really do appreciate Mrs. Ryan Toy talking about how you could join 1 week. If you wanted to join the next week, you go ahead, and I appreciate her because I hadn't realized that was so flexible. So I appreciate that. And so as you know, break is coming up, and so report cards have been hopefully received, and hopefully we'll start in as fresh as we can when we come back. But really, there's nothing much to report other than, you should have received your own grades from your own teachers if you have children at home, and we're hopeful to move on. And we want to thank everyone for changing, administrators as well, everything in the last minute. So thanks.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. Then next is the Policy Committee.
Nothing to report. The next one we'll have 105 out. Discuss policy 105.
Okay, we'll save that excitement for the new year, huh?
Great way to start the year off.
All right. Then next is the Facilities Committee.
It's us, Linda and I. On November 30th, we had a meeting with mostly the architect and the owner's rep and various administrators and myself and Linda, and we discussed many items and looking at basically what the issues are in front of us in terms of what are the sticky points that we're looking at. Spent a lot of time with Central Hauser, and part of actually the reason I'm hesitant is we're going to have a discussion on January 6th. So I don't know that I need to actually go into a lot of detail on some of these. In general, the Blythe Park proposal to work with Recreation Department is going well. There's openness on the part of the Rec Department to make their tennis court available for us to use and share that. Central Hauser continues to be a tough thing to assess because of its cost, and we are looking at options in terms of how to spread this out over the long term to not have to spend quite as much all at once, and even simply assessing what do we really need, what is the priority, or sorry, what is the greatest need on the part of the Central and Hauser campuses, which in summary, it is to make the grassy area all weather. There is infrastructure that goes with that, however. Finally, we have like I said, some of these need further discussion in January.
And I think, just to add on, I think the rest of the conversation we'll be having later on in this meeting. So I don't know if you need to go too much into detail.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of lost in how much I should be saying at this point. I think Central Hauser campus, the auditorium light should definitely be deferred till January. Blythe Park as well, but it's going well. And then we have the Hollywood project potentially as part of an MOU that we're going to discuss. And then last item is that other maintenance item, which is the central sprinklers. And as long as the short version on that is this is a need because the system is failing. However, talking to Mr. Gatz and Ramesh, as long as we are on a reasonable path forward to replace that system, that's an acceptable way to go. Our students are safe. They've practiced their fire drills. The sprinklers really serve to save the facility if there should be an unfortunate event. There's a comfort level with where we're at right now.
More on that in just a few minutes, I'm sure. So we can move.
Thank you, Linda.
Right after this commercial break, is that it? Got to keep them on a cliffhanger. Got to keep them turning back. All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay. So next item on the agenda is old business. And the first item of old business is the D96 tax year 2020 levy. And this is an action item. Is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the tax year 2020 tax levy resolution for a levy amount of total of $819,178, a certificate of compliance with the Truth in Taxation Act, and a resolution authorizing reduction of certain fund levies for the 2020 levy year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All right, are we ready to vote? Okay. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mrs. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next is the school fees for 2021, 2022. This is an action item. Is there a motion that the board approve the school fees for 2021, 2022 as presented?
So
Moved.
second.
Is there any discussion? All right, if not, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mrs. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mrs. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, last item under old business are the 2020, 2021 goals. Is there a motion that the 2020, 2021 goals, the board approves the 2020, 2021 goals as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on the goals?
Yes, could I ask that, I know I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, but would it be possible to vote on this after we talk about the Hollywood project MOUs?
That would probably be appropriate.
All right, is there any objection to that?
I guess I would just sort of like to know the reason, Jeff, for that.
One of the some of the goals concern completing the addition at Hollywood this year, and that's something that I think we need to talk about, or we're going to talk about. So I would hesitate to vote for it as a goal until we've had a chance to actually talk about it.
Okay. Thank you.
It's fair.
Okay, is everybody okay with moving this until after we have the MOUs discussion?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, we will come back to that then. Okay, so then moving down the agenda, that is the next item here for under new business. The first item listed is the Hollywood project MOU, potential action item. Now, since this is potential action item, do we need a motion first, or should we just begin our discussion?
Protocol wise, I'm not entirely sure, but I think having a discussion makes sense, right? I know there's been a lot of questions and just conversations about this, and I can start. Are people okay with that, of not calling it for a motion first and having some discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I know. I'll just add. I know there's been a lot of discussion, and even just where to place this on the agenda. And Jeff, I appreciate that the goal should wait till after this discussion too. So thank you for noting that. Listing this as both new business. On one hand, it's really not new business. It's something we've been talking about, and that's why we listed it as under new business, but as a potential action item. I suppose it could have also been old business, also as a potential action item. The goal in listing as a potential action item is I certainly don't want the board to feel boxed in, or that you have to make these agreements tonight. I know we do feel some pressure of timeline, but I think in what I realized in talking to board members is it's not really a pressure of timeline. It's really some questions around the overall considerations about the project. And the reason that we have continued to think about the Hollywood project specifically is that it really was in our identified long-range goals that we developed a couple of years ago, that we would provide a multi-purpose room or a place to eat lunch, a place to do large group activities, and that we would improve playgrounds, right? Particularly with that goal of separating play and parking. So again, it's not so much a a great need to see the Hollywood project per se done. It's how it fits with our goals. And I certainly realize and acknowledge that goals can be adapted and modified if that's what the board would like to do. Because I think what happened is, we all know, is the world changed. You know, we started this project and the world changed, right? We entered into this pandemic, and this pandemic really changed just thinking, long range thinking. It made it certainly much more challenging. And, you know, unfortunately, this project was delayed because we had, you know, worked so hard with people that I now consider our agreed upon partners, with the HCA, with the Brookfield Zoo, and we have some, and now with the Village of Brookfield, I think we're going to be able to get those street parking spaces. But there's been, all of that has taken a long time. So tonight you have MOUs that relate to bringing the multipurpose room project to final drawings that will allow us to go out to bid on the multipurpose room. It's not about approving the project to be built. It's about agreeing to take it to a next phase. And the playground, I know just in talking with many of you along the way, I think what we want to really talk about tonight is the idea that there are still, you know, options in this process, as Ramesh will call them, breakers meaning break points in the process around which the board can make decisions or decide to go a different way. So with that, I know Joel and Linda have thought about this a lot as facilities chair. I know we also have Steve Wright and Ryan Kelly from DLA, and Ramesh as our owner's rep here. So we do want to really turn this into a conversation to make sure that the board really feels you've had the full opportunity to have discussion, to ask more questions, and to make a determination after the discussion.
Can I ask I guess a procedural question about the MOU? I know they have the conceptual budgets in there. Since we haven't fully decided on, you know, what aspects of the scope, or is it 100% of the scope? Do we have to have those, I guess, finite what I think seems to be pretty concrete budget numbers in there for the projects, or can it be worded in a different way that is, say, you know, a range or to be determined? It's just a question I had.
I think yeah,
I could,
for Ramesh, who's done the cost estimating on this.
Sure. Shari, to throw some light on the subject. So we are only at the concept stage at this time, and we're going to be working with the architects to develop multiple options, simplify, create alternates, and there is no set point that says the project's going to cost $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. We could make the project work at $250,000 based on the elements that are chosen. And it is our intention that we are going to put in multiple alternates on the play surface, for example. We may even limit the size of the project. We may limit the number of playground equipment that we include in the process. And we will keep a very tight lid on the process. If you look at my screen, I just wanted to reiterate what Martha had said. There are multiple circuit breakers in this project. What we're asking for today is only to release the architect to move into the schematic design and design development phases. And as you can see, there are 4 distinct circuit breakers that the board can work through. And at any stage, they can say, stop, we do not want to proceed with this project. The first stage, unless we move through a schematic or design development stage of the play lot design, there is no way to hardline the estimate of the budget, because it's a highly conceptual sketch that we're working off right now. If we move to schematic and design development stage, the architect brings us their engineers, their consultants in, they finish the surveys, they do the civil reviews that they need to do, and they present us with more than a sketch, and we can use that to develop a better budget. And we just gave you the outline. If I had given you the budget at $200,000 and it had bid at $400,000, I'm pretty sure you'd been very upset with me. I'd rather go with $400,000, show the alternates, show how we have drawn the numbers back to where it's acceptable to the board, make the project more finite and confined within an acceptable range. And by creating these circuit breakers through SDDD, that's the first one. In February, we have the option of whether we want to release the architect to go to the construction documents and the bid stage. And then when we issue it for bid and we receive the bids, we can still say no. We can still say we do not want to proceed. You've only paid for the design services at that stage. You are not committing to paying the contractor. You can just say, we've decided not to go ahead with it for multiple reasons. The board has the choice to terminate the project at any time. The idea of this is that if we do not do this, then you do not create a construction project for the summer of this year. And as Martha said, this was all part of a previously approved project, which if all things had been fair and everything had worked out, we would be looking at a Hollywood addition and a play lot as constructed by Berglund Construction based on the bids that we had received last year. It's just that we pulled the projects out because we did not have the appropriate approvals from the HCA, and the process that we had to proceed with was to pull the project, and we are waiting on approvals right now. So there are 3 distinct lines, as you can see in the process that we are looking for the MOUs. They're all design related. There is no commitment to proceed to construction at this stage. The construction decisions are made in April and May. So for construction that will take place in the summer of this year. That's the idea. So there are 3 that you see. You see the central houses sprinkler project, you see the Hollywood multi-purpose room project, and the play lot. All of them can be broken up into, you can do 3 projects, you can do 2 projects, you can do 1 project. There's absolute choice in this. And all the fees in here has been negotiated with DLA. DLA, I mean, I worked with Steve Wright on multiple points of the project. He presented his fee proposal. I negotiated the fee on behalf of the board, and we believe that the numbers that they presented are fair. There was a point that was brought up previously that we've already paid for design services. That is absolutely correct for the multi-purpose room, but it was bid as part of a larger project. So if you look at the bid documents that DLA had put out, it was part of the Ames project, it was part of the Central project, it was part of the Blythe project. Now you need to separate those projects out. You need to pull the Hollywood multi-purpose project out, redo the specs sections, and put it out to bid. And we said, rather than work on a lump sum process, we said a time and material process is far more advantageous to the board by going that route. And that's what we had recommended. In the case of the Hollywood play lot project, we said, let's stop after SD and design development by having that portion set up right now in the current MOU that we're requesting approval on. If the budget that we develop in December, January, based on the design that DLA comes up with all the alternates, if the board doesn't like it or things change, I mean, if the pandemic situation changes, it gets worse, and our financial situation is not great, we can cancel the project in January. The decisions we're making right now is 1 step at a time. It is not the whole step. We're not going to construction. We are not asking to say, commit to $1.5 million, $2 million. It is only the design service that lets us move to the next stage. If at any time the board is uncomfortable, so you can say stop and the project terminates. This is not the decision where you approve bids. That is April, May, long time away. This is just getting past that first step.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally understand. I totally understand that. I guess it was more about the wording that it says the conceptual budget is 650. And I was just wondering, is there a way to word it so that it includes possibility for alternates in those budget conceptual estimates?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no reason not. In fact, we discussed this earlier too. We are going to put substitute materials instead of doing the soft surface membrane, which is very expensive. We will look at wood mulch, which is 1/10 of the price. Absolutely. In fact, it's much faster to construct as well. So there are advantages to that. We may reduce the number of play lot equipment. We may not square off the corner that if you looked at the description that I gave you, we can go with the sliced diagonal corner as well. We can reduce our costs out there as well. All the options we looked at, the contractor who bids the project will bid that with the alternates, and we can say we want to pick 1, 3, and 4. Therefore, the price of the project is $250,000 and not $600,000. We will definitely have those options.
So
Thank you.
Sherry, I think what you're meaning is in the actual MOU's language.
Yeah, no, that's
Can we-
exactly what I mean. Yeah, I'm not an attorney. I don't write those kinds
Right.
of contracts. I was just wondering, could it have said, you know, range up to this amount? It just seems very finite, and it might appear a certain way to the public and to even the architects who are making the designs. Not that we don't love what they do. It's more about the wording and the way it might be perceived.
We can definitely revise that MOU. And just to add to that, you know, with regard to Hollywood, that is our typical process, that we would start at concept, and it would be a bigger picture cost per square foot type of budget. And then we would refine that as we work through SD and DD. But we can absolutely add in that MOU a range to reflect that this is not a finite number.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was asking you. Thank you.
And Shari, I think there's a big advantage also. I'll tell you what the big point on 600,000 is. If the project was 200,000 and you paid for $600,000 worth of services, then DLA could come back potentially and ask you for additional services. Think about that. But by now you've actually bricked them in to a 600,000 upper limit project. And if it goes to 200,000, we are there. You see what I mean? There is no asking for additional services.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and Steve, right now the project schedule says January 2021. Is this towards the beginning of the month, end of the month? Seeing as we're in the middle of December and the holiday season, I think we're looking more towards the end, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And I don't need a specific date on that, but maybe change it to end January 2021. Or I don't know. Like as Sherry noted, I'm also not a contract attorney.
But yes, from a practical standpoint, it would be the end of January. So we can definitely state that.
One question I have, I guess, is that sort of, again, a procedural question, is I thought when we were talking about these MOUs that we sort of had a board agreement that we would not present them to the board for action on the first view. We would always give ourselves at least 1 or 2 meetings to look at them. And I'm wondering, I know we talked about this explicitly the last time this happened. It's happened more than once. I'm wondering why we're still getting the MOUs sort of at what really seemed like the last minute and asked to make a decision on them.
I'll address one point, and I think with the central sprinklers, that's...
I understand that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about I understand the central was unexpected and very important. So that's a separate issue. But the Hollywood thing, we known for 11 months that we were going to revisit this year, and I'm wondering why were we talking about this 3 months ago or 2 months ago rather than now?
Jeff, to your point, the Hollywood project is in flux every second week. I mean, in fact, just last Monday, we went through a review at the Village where we got a positive uptake on, getting the additional parking spaces we're looking for and for the way we could square the corner. The project's been in flux forever. I mean, we got through multiple hoops only 2 months ago, a month ago. Each time we could have been tripped up and the project would have been killed. There would have been no project. If, for example, if we did not get the space, there's no project. We would have just said, let's tank it. So it's always been one step forward, a very hesitant step forward. There's never been a definite path for this project. The only reason it seems to be a priority right now is we are looking at the construction season in the summer of 21. That's the only reason why it's been pushed up, with items becoming favorable to us in the last few weeks. That's one of the reasons why. I think you're absolutely right. We could have come back to you in May of last year and said, let's start the design at this stage and let's talk about it. But we had so much on our plate at that time. We were so busy with getting the construction done for the other schools. We did not even look at this thing till we got into fall of this year. Mm-hmm. There was one of the major reasons is we just did not get the opportunity to move forward. We didn't even look at the sketches till October, November that, that DLA had put forward.
Okay. Thanks for that answer, Ramesh. I guess another question I have, or another point that's somewhat along Sherry's line of thinking, I think, which is that I understand this is conceptual at this point, but Hollywood is our smallest school. There's 130 students there compared to Ames. Ames is 400 students. And so when we, even at a conceptual level, when we put out a tentative budget of $650,000 for a playground at our small school, where a playground already exists, it's not like we've got to do a ton of site work like at Ames. We had drainage issues and all the rest. We know the playground exists there already. To even put that kind of number out, I think is, I think we're sending the wrong signal as a board, in my view, if we're even entertaining that is like even remotely possible. So I wouldn't want, personally, and I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, the architects to be sort of designing something that, you know, is anywhere near that range, because I think that would be just a inexcusable expenditure of money, which is always tight, and maybe even more tight with the pandemic. For this size school and this size project, it seems like it's way out of bounds here. So I think doing the project, the playground, is a huge priority. We need to do it. I'd like to do it this year, but I do think the board has to weigh in and say, hey, these are the parameters you have to work with. You can't come back and say it's $600,000. I mean, just not, or 500 or 400 or 300. It's got to be. So I guess my question for the rest of the board is, do we want to sort of set some limits, just like we did at Ames? We said $175,000 for the playground equipment, and that included installation and all the rest. It didn't include the site work, I understand, but we don't have as much site work to do here. And just say, hey, this is a school that's a third the size, and so things should scale accordingly. And again, this is a question for my colleagues on the board. Is this something that we should, really be setting some limits on?
Well,
go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, before I could give an answer on that, I think we're saying that these are numbers that are coming from Ramesh. I don't know, Ramesh, is there some information you could give a little further to, define out that 600, how you arrived at 650,000?
Yes, I did. It's based on the sketches that we had worked on. So I will share that spreadsheet with you on screen in a second.
Doing that, Ramesh, I guess I just would like to add, Jeff, that again, we sit at concept right now, and what came out of that visioning process were ideas, and a concept was formulated. So we certainly weren't designing to a number. If that makes you feel any better, we pulled all of those ideas and the concept that came out of that process, and that's really where that process stopped. So we haven't had the opportunity to refine, to check budgets. It's really just a number assigned to a conceptual sketch.
No, I understand that. And I assume, Ryan, that you guys would probably want some direction, though. You don't want to go off and design something and then come back and say, here's the $650,000 thing is great, and we're looking at it. It's like, well, don't you want direction on that at some level?
Can I just add something as well? In just speaking from a member of the facilities committee meeting or committee, I think that's exactly where we are at when we're talking about it. We are all very aware of the financial situation we're in. We are very aware of the landscape right now. So I know that as we are sitting in those meetings, that is top of mind. So quite honestly, the $650,000 number was never something that was discussed as in, yes, this project's going to be that, and we're okay with that. Nobody, I think this is just a number that Ramesh came up with based on a design, just from a visioning. So I don't think they're actually, I don't think that number is super based in a reality. I don't really know how to define how that process happened, but please know that as committee members, that is the feedback we are providing. I don't know if I think we can put a number on it just now, because when we did the Ames, we had like quotes of things. So we had an idea of what the play structures, we had some idea. I don't have that right now, so I'm not sure I can put a cap on it, but I do know that I think everybody on the board feels this way about making sure that this is, you know, a financially plausible situation.
Oh, yeah, and I'm
No,
glad.
To address something that both Ramesh mentioned and Sherry and Jeff is, I think to Steve and Ryan, to DLA, right now in this discussion, we are giving you direction, and that is to make sure that you consider multiple, 3, for example, but different options for the improvements. It's high, medium, low, and what's really appropriate, so that the board continues to have the ability to assess how much the board wants to spend on these improvements.
I mean,
I don't know that there's better direction that we can give you, because you have to go through your design process and look at everything and really think about what is possible, what is reasonable, what fits the population of the school, the village codes, etc.
Sure.
David, you were saying something.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just, I mean, I'm sort of, I agree with Jeff, and I understand what you're saying, Linda. I guess I'm just even perplexed at why we're even putting $650,000 out there. Because, I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm sure whatever playground we get for $650,000 is going to be phenomenal, but I would not support a playground even close to that price.
Nor would I. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I guess, and I understand what you're saying, Ramesh, about this as being sort of part of the visioning, but I guess my question is then, and I haven't been sitting in the facilities committee, but I guess the question is the visioning. If I guess the way I'm looking at it is, if my kid comes to me and says, I want this, this, and this, and this, I'm like going, okay, well, you're not going to get this, this, and this, and this, because it's going to cost too much. I guess, why are we going out? I mean, I do think we need to come up with some proposals, but I guess, can we just maybe say, like, just say 350,000, and this is what we want instead.
I just wanted to, if you look at my screen, I just wanted to point out, if you look at the red lines, that shows the boundary of the play lot under consideration. As you can see, this is a substantially greater area that has become available to us, and that's why the number is reflective of that. It's just a concept, a vision statement. We do not have to go down this path. For example, all the soft surface area, which costs over $100,000, we change it to wood mulch. We're looking at a $15,000 item instead of a $100,000 item. So there are all these options. If you look at the extensive play lot equipment, we can scale that back. Absolutely, we can go to half this equipment and reduce the cost from, say, $150,000 worth of equipment to, we can do $75,000. All those opportunities exist for us. It is just that the red line indicates the area that became available to us and how could we best utilize it. It's purely a vision statement. It is no commitment. I think what Jeff said is a very valid point. Why go down the $650,000 path when we're not going to spend that ever? Fine, let's put our bounds on it. If we're going to do a $350,000 project, we'll work towards a $350,000 project. That's absolutely a good line to lay down. We can work that way too.
A couple items though, Ramesh, on your list, I do wonder about. I think in particular we have, it was like close to 50,000 for demolition, and then 100,000 for surfacing, and no matter what kind of project we do, we're going to be stuck with those numbers. Is that correct?
No, because we do not have to do the entire site then. We'll just restrict ourselves because we leave the existing grass as grass. We will not work on those areas. We'll reduce our fenced area.
So that's, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to tack on to what you were saying. Go ahead.
Well, I guess, is that what we're looking at? I think, Jeff's point is that this is already a playground. Why would it cost $100,000 to surface it? I'm guessing, I'm just wondering, so that essentially is all the new space or the new land that hasn't been a playground before is why.
Correct.
And if we get closer to the original boundaries or the current boundaries of the playground, then we're taking that 100,000 out. Would that be an accurate representation?
But Ramesh pretty much said it is the $100,000 is if you do the super nice soft surface.
The
If
rubber,
we
yeah.
stick
Okay.
with wood mulch, then the surface is possibly only $15,000.
Mhm.
So that is what I would expect that DLA is providing to say, here's your choices. This is what we're looking at. And that's DLA's job in creating these schematic is to allow us the ability to pick and choose.
And that's a good
Mhm.
point, Joel. But I guess, isn't one of the goals of the facilities process to be sort of equitable between schools and consistent between schools? And I know we did the wood mulch at Ames because of drainage issues. It's absolutely certain that it's central Hauser. If we do a playground, it's going to be wood mulch because the drainage issues, the surface area there is even worse than Ames, I'm sure, in terms of the amount that's permeable. Blythe is wood mulch. It's going to stay that way. So like, just to be consistent, wouldn't we just automatically make it the same everywhere? Why would we do something differently at one place as opposed to the other? So shouldn't we just like take that off the list?
Well, I can tell you from experience that land to the east, to the west of the Hollywood house we're going to have drainage issues there. It's basically, it rains, it floods. We're going to have, I would be surprised if we don't.
And David, I don't have a child there, but it's pretty much just open grass. It's obviously not used by our students. Or do they use it, Martha?
No, they use it. Yeah, no, they use it.
Okay.
Special
But they use it
activities.
kind of just in a free play running, game kind of situation.
Right. The teachers keep them in the playground. And granted, this is talking about about a year, but they don't. They use it definitely after school.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I was going to say with Dan's comments, I think it would, the spreadsheet that you have, Ramesh, is that a legit, like,
It's a
worst
concept
case, like highest cost, best scenario type thing, or is it just kind of a ballpark?
It's a ballpark. It's based off a sketch. So I don't even have the selection of materials. The soft surface material can vary from $15 a square foot to $35 a square foot, depending on which company is specified.
Right.
But the idea out here was to start somewhere. Because I'm sure if we had just presented just the sketch and everyone liked it, and you had asked me what it cost, and I said, I don't know, you'd been pretty upset. You'd rather, especially if you had bought off on this plan, it would have been a big problem. So it's better off to start off with a number based on the sketch. We took our best shot at it based on information we have at present and what we've experienced in the past in the district. We used similar numbers, and we came up with this sheet. The idea is this is not a commitment. It's just saying that we think it's this ballpark at this time, but we can definitely dial it back. Yep. There is no reason to commit to this entire layout at this time. There's no reason to it.
Yeah, and I think to Dan's point, what I was going to try to tack on to is, the line item of playground equipment, which is probably where most people go, is how much does playground equipment cost? Well, it costs $120,000, but there's a lot more to it than just sticking playground equipment in the ground. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked of the site work that needs to be done. And this is an interesting breakdown. I think for me, I think like just about everybody else, I'm trying to go through different home projects. I got nothing else to do, so I'm trying to do some home stuff. And one of the things I've been working on, we did a landscaping project, and I did the whole thing, like, what can I get here? What can I get there? What does that cost? Okay, that's too much. I'd like it, but that's too much. So what's the next best thing? And going through the same thing for my deck for next year. I'm like, what is the material cost? Like, what is the labor cost? All that kind of stuff. So I think for me, regardless of the MOU, I think I would like, what could we get? What are things that we would like that would make this most usable? Because I think drainage is an issue around here everywhere, and we'll see how the mulch holds up over here at Ames, but we did a massive drainage project that goes along with it too. So I think the mulch should be fine. So depending on drainage, if we've got a giant swamp there and all you do is throw down mulch, is that even going to be usable? It might be cheaper, but are we even going to get anything for that money? So I think going through those scenarios and kind of doing those cost benefit analysis of where to spend your money, and maybe spending a little bit more if you're actually going to get more usability out of it, but at least knowing what those options are and having to Joel's point of having different options. I think what I heard you say, Ramesh, is we can kind of bid and pick and choose. So if I understood that correctly, like, could we, in our bid, can we ask for things that we would like and then realize that they're going to be way too much, and then kind of put that puzzle piece together to say, this is actually within our, whatever it is, $300,000 or $400,000 budget instead of $650,000 budget? I think, I feel like maybe we're getting a little too hung up on fake numbers when we don't really know what the real numbers are. And
Yeah.
once we go out to bid and we get actual legit numbers, I think we should bid options and then figure out what reality is, and then kind of put that puzzle piece together to say, okay, we really don't want to go over 350,000. So which pieces of these puzzle are most important to hit that number? That's the way I've been thinking about it.
Yeah. I think to your point, a very important point out here. If our survey and our civil engineer comes back in schematic design and says that we have a pond out here and we've got to put in $250,000 worth of civil structures, the project's going to die. It's not going to happen. So that's going to happen in the next 45 days.
Okay.
So we're going to get to that point very quickly. But on the other hand, if he comes back and says that he can put simple drainage in and nothing's going to, it's going to work, I think we are on a safer ground. So we're going to pass some of these critical points, the big ticket items, fairly quickly.
David, do you know on the current footprint of where the playground equipment is behind the Hollywood House primarily, and a little bit to the east of that or the west of that, is that area what's blue right now? That's where the bulk of it is, and I think there's a little bit to the east. Is that area unusable when it's wet, or
No.
or are we talking about some other area?
We're talking, you see, if you look at it's closer to the sidewalk, sort of like it's south of the house, sort of that area right there. There's like a little white box. Or
So the current area is okay in terms of drainage.
Right, there's no issue. I've never, if it rains,
things get wet, but it's not like it's like a swamp.
It's not like it is over at Central in Hauser.
Okay.
Well, right now the sidewalk, this is our proposed design, if I remember correctly. And so that sidewalk is actually going through the kickball court currently.
Right.
And that might be cost prohibitive to move that sidewalk.
Right.
The drainage might be cost prohibitive. This whole project might monetarily squeeze itself down to a much smaller space. And
I got it. And I agree with what you're saying, Wes and other people, Joel, that, we need to get some numbers, Linda. I guess, though, that there is a sense in which, like, if you go out and hire an architect and say, I want to build a house, like, there's a very different statement to say, I want to build $1 million house, or I want to build a $300,000 house. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're different things, and I think we just have to indicate, here a little bit, like, hey, we are not interested in the $1 million house. We are interested in, whatever that.
Yeah,
I think there was some concern on some folks on the board that if we're setting, budgets, even if they're kind of pie in the sky budgets, that designs might float up to meet those budgets. So I think we've done well here to express our opinion and make it known to vendors who are here with us. And it sounds like from their discussion that they have a better idea of that, if they hadn't already. Now, we've talked about a lot about the playground, though. There's also the multi-purpose building that's a part of this as well. And I guess, we're talking about 650,000, or that's the number on this document for the playground. I guess the number for the multi-purpose room really concerns me, at being north of $1 million. I don't know. Can someone remind me what was the original proposal for this when it was part of the other projects? I'm thinking it was closer to 600,000. Am I right?
For the multi-purpose room?
Yes.
No, it was always in excess of $1 million. It came in within budget in the Berglund bid too. The only reason why we said it's going to be a little bit pricier is because it's a standalone project, a smaller project, and being bid 2 years later. So that's why we said that we need to be cognizant that the potential of it costing more is high. That's all we said, even with the exact same design. That's the only idea. Once again, we can stop the project at bid stage. If it comes back at, say, 1.5 or 1.6 million, we can say, no, we don't want to do it.
So the 1.1 you're mentioning is kind of just, you're picking it up from the old design and moving it across.
That is correct.
Okay.
And also we took what Berglund had bid for the job. So because that was a real number bid by them.
Okay.
Just follow up on Dan's point. I guess one of the things I keep coming back to is with this Hollywood House or not the Hollywood House, but the Hollywood Edition. And I'm 100% in favor of the playground. I think that's something we absolutely have to do and we should do. And it's only really a question of design and price. But when it comes to the addition for the multi-purpose room, what I have trouble wrapping my head around is the square footage and the number of classrooms per section at each of the different schools, and the number of small rooms per student, and the number of medium-sized rooms. All that, when you look at basically the space that's available, however you want to slice it and dice it, per student at Hollywood, I have trouble seeing why it's a good idea to add an addition to Hollywood at this point in time. And the reason I say that is that when we started these conversations, Hollywood have 9 classrooms basically, and plus a bunch of other little sort of rooms. They've got 9 classrooms. And at that time, when we started this whole process, the preschool was there, and the preschool was taking 2 of those 9 classrooms, which is huge for a small one-section school to be taking that percentage of the space. But in the subsequent 4 years that this process has been unfolding in different ways, first the preschool was moved to Blythe, and Ladsey, one section or one classroom was moved to Hollywood. So that freed up basically 1 out of the 9 classrooms to be available for the K through 5. And also the number of the population at the school went down by a lot. I mean, there was 60 kids in the preschool at that point. Now they're only there half day, so figure that's 30. But that was a big decrease. And then just this year, and I don't think we haven't sort of seen how it plays out because of the pandemic, but just this year, Ladsey was moved from Hollywood to Central, and that freed up another classroom. So just between the freeing up of those 2 classrooms, the amount of space that's available to Hollywood students has increased by about 30%. And if you look at the absolute amount that they actually have per student, again, however you slice and dice it, they're in much better shape than, for example, Blythe is going to be in the next couple of years as we continue to make Blythe a 2-section school. So I just have trouble saying, like, if we're going to add an addition somewhere, that this is the place to do it, because it just doesn't, by the numbers, it doesn't make sense to me. In terms of multi-purpose room, what I don't understand what we couldn't do, or why couldn't we take the current kindergarten room, which is one of the biggest classrooms in the entire district, is 1,000 square feet, beautiful classroom, lots of windows, and say that's the multi-purpose room. And then the kindergartners take the 750 square foot room that the Ladsey was in. And to me, that seemed like a perfect solution without having to spend $1 million or $1.2 million on an addition, which of course it would be nice, but given our fiscal constraints, given the uncertainty with the pandemic and all the finances, is this really the right decision at this point in time? And I'm really not sure that it is.
I would say some other considerations where we made new multipurpose rooms recently, both at Central and at Ames. We had conflicts with the gym. That lunchtime was causing issues with their scheduling. I'm not sure I've heard that there are any similar issues at Hollywood. I don't know, Martha, is that something that exists? Is that something that, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt. I think we could work around those. You're right. I mean, at Ames, when we were eating in the gymnasium, we had to make some significant modifications because there was enough setup and takedown before and after lunch that we had to impact a PE period. We didn't really have the free space in the schedule to do. I think at Hollywood, it has not been a scheduling problem. It's been more a sense that there are students that have expressed that they'd rather not be eating in the gym. But I think this discussion is so valuable. So I'm trying to be a good listener here and really let the board express their views. But I don't think there's a scheduling conflict, Dan, to your specific.
Well, to that point though, I mean, there might not be a scheduling conflict, but I do know that, like, on days that there's like a rain day or snow day or what have you, and they can't go outside and play, you have recess and people eating lunch in the same location. And so, I mean, so that while that's not ideal, but I mean, I see what you're saying, Jeff, but I guess this is I guess I have two questions. I mean, I know you've done a lot of work on the square footage. And so I'd sort of be interested, what is the ideal square footage per school? I mean, and I'm not talking our district, educational environment. What's the ideal space per child in a school? But I guess more importantly for me is we made a decision when this all started to embark on an addition and a playground at Hollywood. And while I can tell you right now, as Ramesh alluded to, this has not been an easy path at all. We've had some very unwilling partners along the way, some very difficult partners along the way, and this is actually probably going to cost the taxpayers more money because of a lot of those unwilling partners. But the fact is that we made a decision to go forward with this, and I do think we need to honor that commitment. But that being said, though, I mean, the school is tight, and I guess in regards to the space, all our schools are tight. And yes, we're giving space to more of these kids, but the school is still going to be tight. It's tight. The multi-purpose room, it will still be tight, but it's definitely going to give them more space. And I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to provide the space that we committed to. We did enough analysis. That space I do feel is needed, and that's something that we need to move forward with.
Yeah,
No.
if I might, I'm just going to be quick. I do have concerns about the cost. However, I mean, having a flexible space, and I would hope that it wouldn't just be used for a lunch, actually. And I know based on the designs, I saw that there were conceptual ideas about music and other, of course, large group settings and instruction, and even staff could be using it for things. I do think that is useful. I've eaten in a gymnasium. It's not great. So I'm in favor of this portion of the project. The playground to me needs to be scaled back. But if there's any way we could economize on the costs for the addition, I'd be in favor of that. But having this kind of space, I think, is valuable. It's a difficult thing, but I think in the long term, it's better for the students. But.
Yeah, if I could just add a few things. I think both sides of this are incredibly valid. I am in support of a project we already decided to do. However, I'm very nervous about our finances. So I'm somewhere in the middle. However, at this point, I think it's the right thing to do is to move forward to bid to see what this is going to cost to have that conversation. Because I think that's really where the conversation for me comes down to is if it's bid at a price that we just can't pay, then that informs my decision that way. So I guess all I'm trying to say is I think both points are incredibly valid, but I think at this point, when we're just trying to approve an MOU to go to package it for bid, I think for me, it's a no-brainer that we do that. We take the step forward to move along in the process.
All right. Well, we've definitely talked on this a bit. Is there, what are our thoughts here? We have this as a potential action item. What would the board be comfortable moving with this evening, or perhaps not moving forward at all? Are we looking to vote on this MOU, or are we looking for more information or clarification?
Sorry, Linda, go.
No, I wonder if we're going to say the same thing. I don't know. I would be in support of voting for it tonight. I think I hear Jeff's point from earlier about usually getting more notice, and I know we've talked about that, and I firmly believe in that as well. But I do think time is of the essence, and I would like our architects to be able to move along with this so we can come to some the discussion with some real ideas of what the costs will be and what the design will be. I would like to move forward, but that's just me.
I'm going to agree with Linda. I do think, I mean, we need to see this cost, and the costs do concern me a bit. I mean, if this addition comes in like twice what we originally originally thought, this is obviously going to be a much different discussion. And we're going to have to reevaluate a lot of things here. but I do think we need to cost before we can move forward. I mean, as we had, like I mentioned, I mean, Brookfield still hasn't approved parking. Now we had some indications that it looks like we have more favorable, and I know they're going to be voting on that in January. But we still don't have parking. We don't have all the parking we need. So we could, if we like wait for everything to be like lined up perfectly, we're going to be looking 2022. And I do think we just need to move forward as quickly as we can, because so we can get these estimates in and then make it have a better discussion, a more informed discussion.
Yeah, I'm fine with moving forward with the playground. I guess with the and one last consideration with the addition is that we know that we don't have quite enough space at Blythe for a full 2 sections, and that even when we do have full 2 sections, it's going to be tight. I think Blythe is only about 50% larger than Hollywood in terms of square footage. So you're talking about 1 section versus 2. So we're going to have to do something at Blythe in the next, not this year, maybe not next year, but probably in the next 2 or 3 years, either with the auditorium or something else. And I guess my question is, given that Ramesh has emphasized that you do get economies of scale with bundling, would it make sense if we wanted to do this multi-purpose room at Hollywood, just to wait until we need to do something at Blythe and bundle it in there at that time. At that point in time, we will also probably have a better sense for how our finances look and all the rest. So I guess that's another possibility that I would like to, throw out there as for something people consider. So basically defer it to the future, defer that to the future.
That's probably a good point, Jeff, but anything we're doing right now will not foreclose on that. And I have to say, I disagree with this idea that we're tight. And this is something I've said to Martha a few times. Our kids are getting a good education. They're getting a good education in the facilities that we have. We could, at this point, not do anything. And I'm not saying we should do that, but this is the Steve, remind me, there's a word term for this, but there is a leave it as is approach that you have to compare against. And so everything we are adding or considering building is a bonus to our kids, but they are not getting a poor education because of the facilities that we have and we use for them right now. And yes, this addition would have been built already had we not had some issues going forward, but that situations change. It's possible that it may never get built. That depends on some things as we look forward, the bid price, the finances, etc. But I push hard against the idea that we've made a promise. Promises and plans have to be adjusted as we move forward. This 5-year plan, now I can't remember the name of that either, but that's going to look at things too, and we adjust as we move forward. And I think to Linda's point and Dave's point, I think we've given DLA some good direction on what they should be thinking about and what they should be presenting in 45 days or whatever it is. So I also would like to move forward with the MOU with knowing that we've set out some caveats.
I personally, I am okay moving on with the MOU because this is in a preparatory stage. However, I would, I don't want to demand, but I would ask that the MOU be changed to reflect alternates, as Ryan was mentioning would be possible. I would appreciate that, so that we don't have that number hanging there. I think the public would appreciate that as well.
The MOU doesn't commit us to that number.
I'm not saying it does. For me, it's just a matter of making things understandable for the public and what the process is. And I think reflection of a range is a good place to start.
I agree with Sherry. Like a range of like $100,000 to whatever 350 or something like that, like 100 on the low end, and say that's just replacing equipment, and then all the way up to 350. But to me, like having that kind of range would be good.
I'm not sure I would be in favor of limiting that range to 350. at this point. I think I'm going back to Ramesh with his thought of, well, if we limit ourselves too much, then we're going to be having this conversation again for an additional MOU if drainage turns out to be unfavorable.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure I care about the exact cap it being 350. I would just ask for at least a bottom range to reflect that there is a range.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Very valid point. I think DLA mentioned that that they could do that, I believe.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the creativity and the plans that site, all of our sites are very unusual and triangular and strange. So I do appreciate them working in our confines.
Right. Well, it sounds like I'm hearing that majority of the board is in favor of moving forward with the vote on this MOU. Is that correct?
If we're asking for a change, can we vote on this and then just say there'll be a range embedded? I mean, there's only one spot that there's really a range,
Right.
because Ramesh said the
Yeah.
multi-purpose room is a legit bid that we got back, and it's probably only going to go up. So
Right.
really, it's just this one line on the playground having a range. So
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, can we move forward approving it like with that change? We've done that before,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd be fine doing that.
Okay. All right. Well, I will go ahead and state that then. So is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the Hollywood project MOU as presented with noted modifications such as a price range for the playground project?
Dan, is there one MOU or two MOUs here? Are there two? Is there a separate one for the playground and for the addition, or is it one single?
They're
MOU?
together.
It is one.
They're
It is
together.
one single MOU for both projects.
I mean, is it possible to split that into two? Because I'd like to vote for one and against the other.
I could just step into that. The Hollywood multipurpose room addition, the TNM services, DLA is not going to execute that till we get closer to its bid, because the document's already done. So they will not be doing any work on it like tomorrow. So that can wait if you would like, if you want that to be, that portion of it can stay. We can decide that later on.
Yeah, the work for the multi-purpose room is already done. It's the work for the
Playground.
playground that hasn't been
Right.
started yet.
So the central section out here that I'm showing out here for the TNM repackaged bid documents, it can wait and can go concurrently with the play lot if the board chooses to do that later on. We don't
Only if
have
we
to
move-
pick that.
Yeah, only if we decide to move forward with construction, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
No.
No.
No,
The
for
bid.
bid.
To bid. We need to put it for bid.
If we want to go to bid, we need to get this done. I understand if you want it to be two MOUs, but I don't think this is something we should wait on specifically. Like,
Well, I will
mean,
go back to. I'm sorry, Linda. Go ahead.
no, I mean, if it's possible to split it into two MOUs, that's great. As long as we're voting on that next MOU next meeting, because I don't want to do another thing. Like, I don't want to forget about this and then be bidding on, talking about this MOU 2 days before the project.
Yeah, no,
Before-
Linda, I think we just need, I think we're cutting it too close. I mean, I would say, Jeff, I can understand your stance, but I mean, I would just, let's get this moving, because I don't want, we're cutting it too close, I think, in January.
I do worry about, we've talked about it a bit tonight already. I'm not sure splitting it out would get us any value. I definitely have some reservations on whether that project moves forward or not, but I appreciate your suggestion, Jeff. I'm not sure that, I think personally, I'm okay moving forward with both of them as current, the one MOU.
Should we just go ahead and vote then, or?
Well, let's see. I think we haven't had the motion yet. So,
right.
So let's see. We had one try at it. We'll try it again. All right. So is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the Hollywood project MOU as presented with noted changes such as a price range? Were there any other additions? I think it was essentially the price range was our biggest addition or change.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleiber,
Aye.
Mr. Marhol,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
No?
Mr. Muirhead,
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item for consideration, under same title of new business discussion, potential action item, Central Sprinklers MOU. Did we want to move on this and have a discussion, or did we just want to follow the same format and have the discussion first?
We can have discussion.
I mean, we can.
I'm not sure there's much point to the discussion since the work needs to be done.
Thank you, Joel. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. So why don't we just make the motion and then have the discussion?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the Central Sprinklers MOU as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. So let's see. What is there to discuss on that? Let's have open it up for discussion.
Or do we need to hear anything from Ramesh right now, or Steve or Ryan, on the necessity and the plan moving forward with the work?
I'll just give you a quick background as to how we got there. So if you recall, during the construction period, as we were getting closer towards occupancy, we had our testing of the system, at which time the fire marshal indicated to us that many of the heads at Central were blocked, clogged, and non-functional. And Berglund proceeded to replace the heads in the construction area. And at which time we discovered that we had multiple systems in play. We had a dry system at Central, and we had a wet system at Hauser. At which time, when we presented this to the board 3 months ago, the board authorized us to go ahead and flush out the systems to see if we could dislodge the slime and the buildup that was there, and to make the system functional once again, to whether it would be built up to code. So we proceeded with US Fire Protection. They went ahead and they started testing Central and Hauser, at which time we said, why don't we test Ames as well, because it has an older system as well. They went ahead and tested Ames and found Ames to be fully compliant, and the test results were very good in our favor. When they started testing Hauser, they found out that the wet system at Hauser is functional, the pipe is good, but they also found that Hauser has a dry system in the attic space. So Hauser actually has two systems in play. And Central is a completely dry system. The dry system, unfortunately, despite all the flushing that they did, they found out that the heads remained clogged, the pipe remained clogged. There were, in fact, microscopic holes that had opened up in the pipes because of the age. The fire pump is almost 60 years old, which is well beyond its serviceable life, and it does not meet code. So each weekend when we were flushing on this project, Dan Peardnock, who is the fire marshal for the village of Riverside, he used to stop by, he used to meet with me, and he looked at the system and he shook his head and said that you're just wasting money trying to go through this whole process because you're not dislodging the slime, which would require essentially every head to be removed. And this had to be done every weekend, the cost of which would be really cost prohibitive. And he also said that the pipes had degraded so much that you'd be wasting good money. And within 2 years, you'd require the whole system to be replaced. So at that time, I brought it to the facilities committee's attention that the system has reached the end of its service life and needs to be replaced. The Central dry system needs to be replaced in its entirety. The Hauser dry system needs to be replaced in its entirety. And this one requires to be re-engineered to current codes, not what was required 60 years ago. So that's the reason why we asked DLA to bring in a specialist fire protection engineer on their team who would be able to look at the system and decide whether we need 2 fire pumps to separate the 2 schools, or we have a single fire pump. And one of the key elements that we also found was that it was taking almost 12 minutes for water to reach the dry system when it was activated. That means after a fire was triggered at Central, it would take 12 minutes before a head would fire, because a compressor has to push the water in a dry system to that head, and it was not happening. So once we saw all these pitfalls in the system, we made the recommendation to replace the system. This is the best time to do it now. The reason being that there is not much of a service life left in the system, and we would be asking for multiple waivers from the village of Riverside if we were to proceed of leaving the system the way it is. It's best to proceed at this time with replacing the system.
How old is the existing system, Ramesh?
It's about 60 years old. The fire pump is 60 years old. The piping could be 75 or 80 years old.
40. Yeah.
This is one of those areas where I think there's absolutely clear we need to move quickly, as Ramesh is recommending, because it is a safety issue, and I think that's the right call. I guess I'm curious though, do we have any sort of estimate of like what this is going to cost, or have we not gotten that far yet?
Not yet, because we're not even started a concept. So once the engineer, that's why we've asked for approval of the SD and DD services too. So once that comes through, we'll sit down and estimate the system, because if they tell us that we need 2 pumps, it's a different price. If we need 1 pump, it's a set price. How much replacement pipe do we have to go through? And there's architectural finishes that will have to be rebuilt too, because most of these pipes are in interstitial spaces. So we would have to pull down some of the ceilings to do this work and whatnot. So we'll have a better idea as to what we're working with. We will even have lead paint mitigation, asbestos abatement. There's a lot of work that's got to be done this, but this is critical in the sense that we do need to get this approved by April, because the fire pumps tend to have a very long lead time item. They're about 16 weeks almost. So we're almost looking at getting it towards August. If we delay that bid past April, it could be a challenging environment to get the project finished this summer. But that's why we felt that we need to move right now. But definitely we'll have an idea as to what it costs in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
That makes total sense to me. And I guess my done a couple of years ago, and this was not flagged, and it does concern, and it was not DLA that did it, was a firm.
Jeff, I'm going to restart you. We lost you there midway through. You might want to start again.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, so I was going to say that thank Ramesh for that background. I guess one thing that's sort of a little bit tangential is that we did have a life safety analysis that was done a couple of years ago by another firm. You guys can hear me now or not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
And they didn't flag this. They didn't say the system is 60 years old or 75 years, however old it is, and you need to think about replacing it. So it does concern me that this very, very important element of the safety of the buildings, this is a old wooden building, Central, it does concern me that this is like, we just almost found by happenstance. And like, I'm wondering, like, are there other things that are floating out there that we're unaware of that, we thought would have been addressed in life safety, but just apparently were not properly addressed. So it's a question I have at this point.
Yeah, I share the same concern, Jeff. I think you brought that up a couple meetings ago too, about, where else might we have something that we think is okay that isn't. So I don't know that that's necessarily, I don't know if that would be a Ramesh thing or if we need to think about another third party, but it's definitely something I think we should think about collectively. Do we need some sort of assessment or something like that of our facilities to point out age or whatever? But
yeah, right. Because the rafters in, I'm sure they don't build buildings like that anymore, but the rafters in Central, that's all wooden rafters. That's all wood. I mean, that got fire from electrical or whatever. I mean, that burned the whole thing down,
Wesley, to your point, if you recall, about 2 months ago, we did bring up the point that we should do a facilities assessment every 5 years.
Yep.
It is critical to do that. You update the information. There can be mistakes that are made. For example, we did address the chimney at Hollywood on an emergency basis because we noticed that there was brick that was falling. And even though it was slated to be demolished in, say, I think next year was when it was slated to be demolished, we had to expedite the project once we found the brick was on the roof. But we took it down efficiently at half the cost that we had budgeted. So that was a good save.
Yeah. And To this project, I also agree. I mean, being in an industry that is heavily reliant on sprinkler systems, both from a property preservation and more importantly, a life safety component is, I mean, everything that you're saying, Ramesh, is you're saying in a very calm way, but it's concerning. And 12 minutes is a very long time to not have water burning on a wood structure. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that we need to, I don't think we should delay this much longer. It's just a cost we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, it's a historic building. Besides just the preservation of the building, it's important. There's, 600 children in there at Hauser next door and 400 in, that's a lot of people with the staff, and it just has to be done. So.
But if I'm not, I completely agree. We need to do this. I guess the only thing that I do want to stress, and I know it was brought up in the last board meeting, is that, and Martha, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember saying that there was never any concern about people getting out in the event of a fire. It's more about the preservation of the building.
Correct.
Than that. And so I did have one question. This obviously has no bearing on whether or not to proceed, but I guess the one question I do have is, because we're doing this, because we're undertaking this, is there any benefits through our insurance policies because we're undertaking improving this, and essentially hopefully it never happens, but like if there is a fire, we're doing a better job at preserving the structure. Is there any benefits with the reduced insurance rates, or do insurance companies look upon this favorably, or is this just sort of a moot point?
I mean, we could certainly look into that. It starts a more challenging question about the status we're in right now.
Right. I'm not saying, it's just a question that if we can maybe bring it up with our insurance at that time, after we do that.
I can look into it. I think that what we would be doing is getting it to the status of the place where it needs to be, that they kind of assumed with the insurance. So if anything, if it was something we didn't fix, it might cost us more in insurance. I don't expect.
Or it would cost us our insurance.
No, yeah, it has to be
point taken.
Yeah, I know it's a compliance issue. Are we doing what we need to do? So.
Yes. I mean, these are reasons that I would cancel contracts, quite honestly. So I'm not saying ours would, but just like, this is stuff that we take pretty seriously in the insurance industry, especially when you're talking about large buildings filled with a lot of people and old and wood, and the sprinkler systems are, I'm a little surprised that our insurance company hasn't pointed some of this out to us, but they might not have. I mean, some of these buildings it's hard to get information on too, so maybe they're just unaware of it. But
well, I think that's why I appreciate Martha reaching out. Like, our fire department is in tandem with us and understanding our situation, and they are aware. So I'm glad that at least there's a partnership there. So
yeah, for sure.
Keeping a close eye on this project, and they know, we have to do this project in the summer, right? I've asked Ramesh multiple times, are you sure we can't do it with children there, move children in some way that I know would be disruptive, but I think we really need the building vacated to do this, right, Ramesh?
Yeah.
Yes, because we do bring the system down. We can't have a non-sprinkler building, so we have to shut it down. The fire alarm system is powered down as well. The two systems are tied together.
Just a bit of history. I mean, just sort of a little tangential, but the first school in District 96 was actually built in 1885 at the site of Central School, and that was actually not just the elementary and middle school, it was the high school as well. And that was a very beautiful building by the photographs, but that burned to the ground in I think like 1996. Right, 1896, and then Central was built after that. So there is precedent there that if the buildings were built at that time are like it was a brick building but had wooden.
All right. On that note, should we vote?
Yeah,
that's a good.
Just to push everybody over onto the.
All right, Mr. Hutt.
Segue. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mrs. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Mrs. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And just to reiterate, like we're okay with the children and the getting out and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, I don't want any parents panicking with any of these little bits and pieces that they're getting. So our fire departments are very close. They're very good. So.
Yeah, Mr. Gatz has assured us they evacuate the building. What did he tell us? 3 minutes and some odd seconds.
Yeah, which is amazing for a building that size. So, and
yeah.
All right, definitely good. That is good to hear. Next item is again under new business. This is not a potential action item. This is the school calendar, proposed school calendar for 2021-2022.
Yeah, I'll just make a brief comment. This is just for initial consideration. As you know, we work with Riverside Brookfield High School, and we look at especially winter break and spring break schedules so that we can match those up for families. We usually do this around December, January. It is not an urgent issue right now. We've already even had some interesting conversations about, would you start school later if it meant that kids could be vaccinated, if it was going to take us through August or something to move through vaccines. I mean, there's so many unknowns. I am so hopeful that next year's a more normal year, but of course we don't have any guarantee of that yet either. So anyway, just wanted you to take an initial look at this. It's something we can bring forward. It's something we don't have to even vote on in January. I think we don't have to submit this to the State Board of Ed until springtime, but it's something in terms of our own board calendar, we have brought this to your attention in December or January.
And I would guess, I would guess not. And I think Ramesh said this, I think he dropped, but with the fire pumps, if we going forward, depending on all that kind of stuff, I don't think that type of construction, I don't know if Ryan or Steve could speak to that, but all the interior work should probably be done. The fire pumps I don't think that would cause any kind of disruption for the classrooms or anything like that, but it might be something, if we can get all the timing and everything by the 30th, do we need to take that into consideration? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you that thought occurred to me just in this conversation of what if there was some delay in that project? Do we want to look at a slightly later start than has been our typical? Something to consider. I can certainly confer with Ramesh again. And Angela, I know you're still on the call, right? I know Angela also has been looking at the calendar and looking obviously at our instructional year. Do you have other comments about the calendar?
No, everything that Yuri said is good. So I don't have anything to add except we'll explore a couple of start dates, see where we land. And then as we learn more about the upcoming year, hopefully be able to make some more firm decisions.
Reality is too, I mean, we know it's really important to promise to our families, a first day of school. And as you know, we changed it this year, even in August, right? We changed it to that September 2nd date. So a calendar is modifiable. It's just that it is a commitment to the community, is a commitment to our families. I know people, build their summer schedules around it. So I do want to be as clear as we possibly can, but certainly in another emergency, let's hope we don't have another emergency situation, we could make some modifications if need be.
All right, any further discussion on this? All right, if not, I will move to public comment. Has there been any additional public? I'm sorry?
Sorry, Dan, don't mean to cut you off, but we tabled the goals.
You are absolutely right. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Oh, goodness me. All right, let me pull this back up here. Actually, yes, so under old business, going back to the goals, is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the goals for 2020, 2021 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, and is there discussion on these?
All right, I'm going to steal Jeff's thunder. I think one of the issues that was noted was in terms of the as agreed to language and of some of the improvements and the idea that these goals should not be should be flexible enough to say that maybe certain improvements will be delayed or may not happen. Is that, Jeff? I
I
realize.
agree with that, Joel. I think that makes sense to me, at least.
All right. Is everybody in agreement with those changes?
I think, sorry, to look at the language of it, to continue to strive to improve school facilities.
I was gonna.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if we're gonna like do that, I would just say let's lump everything in together, because I don't think we should be calling out any specific school then in that aspect. I think we should just say continue to improve facilities as needed, or something along those lines. But
that makes sense. Leaves a little bit open for us. Then it gives us some flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I think though I think I was about to say the same thing. I think it's more the specific actions part that's a little fungible right now. So are we comfortable just scratching that and leaving the generic language? Is that too generic?
I think it's too generic, and I may have spoke too soon. I think maybe just say specific actions for consideration, get rid of the date, and include these things. And that gives us sufficient flexibility to make decisions in the future.
So maybe we can, instead of saying complete previously agreed, maybe we can say finalize an agreed upon approach, including those two things. Just add that word into there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds good.
Leslie, yeah.
Mhm. Great.
I think we will capture it well, and I know Kathy will capture it in the minutes too. So we are going to keep the specific actions, but we'll change the wording in it. Finalize. What did you say, Wesley? What final?
So the second bullet says finalize an agreed upon plan to reconfigure Central Hauser. Can we just do finalize an agreed upon plan for Hollywood School? Like just put that language in front of, instead of complete previously agreed, do finalize an agreed upon plan.
Yes.
And then I think everything else can probably stay the same, and that gives us that wiggle room with, like I think it was said, if it comes in at $2.5 million and we kill it, we're not held to completing it when it's way outside of budget.
So would it make sense just to even make it more clear, just to say finalize a plan and not leave an agreed upon, because that sort of implies that we've already agreed upon it, which we sort of haven't. We sort of are still, waiting to finalize it, to finalize a plan.
That's fine.
That is more concrete. It's either finalized or it's not. So I'm good with that.
Can we approve these with the pending changes, or is this something that comes back next meeting?
I mean, I don't think there's any rush on this. If we want to just hold it for next meeting's a cow meeting though, right? So it'd have to be mid-January. Oh, the school year is going to be over by the time we approve these goals.
Can we just change it to maybe a special meeting? I mean, to address this?
We could.
It might be nice to have them agreed to in early January. We put them up on the website. I will send them in a parent communication. I don't know how much people are waiting with bated breath for our goals, but it might feel nice to have them completed as we kick off 2021.
Well, especially if you're going to have more of those strategic planning meetings, you probably need something to talk about.
Yeah.
So ask Kathy to take our words, put them into this document, and then have a special meeting on the 6th to agree to what the final document looks like.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds very, very doable. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
It's all on you, Kathy.
Okay. Are there any other proposed changes or any other suggestions? Anything? All right. If not, then I will move back to item N of public comment and response. Have there been any additional public comment come in during the meeting?
You know what? Let me check. Hold on, please.
Okay. David, you get a gold star for bringing that item up. Otherwise,
Is there like we should have a clapping little symbol, like you can give your thumbs up to your neighbor.
There we go. Otherwise, we would be talking about it in January anyway, but,
Right.
but without
And there are
changes.
no additional comments.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right, then for future meeting dates, January 6th, 2021, listed as committee of the whole. Sounds like we were going to change that to a special board meeting at 7 p.m. The location currently is TBD. I don't know if folks have a preference on a meeting location. If school is in session, I believe it is our intention to meet in person. If we would like to go back to Ames or Central, or if there's any preference.
Right, we've been wanting to try Central. I know, I think that the handicapped entrance, I think, is all functional at this point in time. That was the reason we weren't going to meet there, because it wasn't in theory handicap accessible without that handicapped entrance being the
How
open.
about we tentatively propose to be at Central if school is in session and if the handicapped entrance is available, otherwise Ames.
That makes sense. Yeah. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right. So that would be at 7 p.m. The January 20, so 7 p.m. at Central Multipurpose Room. And next meeting is January 20th, 2021, regular business meeting, 7 p.m. in the multipurpose room at Ames. Board will enter into closed session at 6:30 p.m. if necessary, returning to open session at 7. And that is it on the agenda. If there is nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.